Maryam al-Zuwaidi and 9 members of her family used to live here before Israeli missiles turned their home to rubble. During fighting with the Islamic Jihad group in August 2022, they lost everything.
Because we're on the border, all the shells and missiles intercepted by the Iron Dome fall on us. So when the Israeli strikes began, we quickly rushed out of our home along with our neighbours. The next day we sent my son back to fetch some belongings for the children, but he found our home completely destroyed.
And it wasn't the first time. In 2014, al-Zuwaidi's home was partially damaged in an Israeli airstrike and repaired by the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees. These days, Maryam, her children and grandchildren live together in a rented apartment, which is all they can afford. Most buildings here have been rebuilt since they have been damaged in previous conflicts, and those living in this neighborhood fear for their lives because they're forced to flee their homes every time violence escalates. Entire neighborhoods on Gaza's northern and eastern borders are constantly under attack. Families say they are hit by shells from Israeli tanks and bullets from machine guns. Sometimes farmers' land is bulldozed and shepherds take cover from gunfire. Not far from what used to be Maryam's home, Yahya Abaid and his family have returned to theirs. It was rebuilt recently after being destroyed for a second time in Israel's 2021 war on Gaza. Yahya's son Khalil was injured. He says they never feel safe.
Once we hear that any tension is taking place, even before the first bullet is fired, we pack and leave our home because the Israelis fire their tanks without prior notice and in any direction. They fire randomly at us.
UNRWA helps with the reconstruction of houses for Palestinians living in border areas, putting it under additional financial strain.
There is an enormous burden on UNRWA to meet this need. After the conflict in May 21, we appealed to the international community for funding. We have either rebuilt or repaired over 7,000 houses here in Gaza to make sure that people have the bare minimum acceptable level of shelter or housing.
Because of the constant wars and rounds of escalation, most Palestinians in Gaza do not feel safe. But those who live near the borders are the most vulnerable because they have nowhere else to go. Youmna, Al Jazeera, Gaza.